media on there for me?
Hello. We are live. We are Distraction and Discussion. We are coming at you watching the People's Convention, the only convention that matters. I'm excited for this.
Yes, it should be quite good indeed. I don't know, do we have volume for the actual stream?
Let me double check. It looks like we do. I'm getting readings for it.
Welcome to the People's Convention 2020.
Ooh!
Here's your host, Nick Brana.
Sisters and brothers, young and old, black, brown, and white, poor and middle class, and to those from every corner of the country, welcome to the People's Convention. My name is Nick Brana. I am the founder and national coordinator with the Movement for a People's Party, and your host for this historic day. We announced the People's Convention just 3 weeks ago, and today we are being joined by some of the greatest voices for justice in our country, including Bernie 2020 co-chair, Senator Nina Turner, Harvard professor, Dr. Cornel West, two former Democratic presidential candidates, Marianne Williamson and Mike Gravel, Senator Mike Gravel, the former governor of Minnesota, Jesse Ventura, actor and humanitarian, Danny Glover, Pulitzer Prize winner, Chris Hedges, comedian and political commentator Jimmy Dore, and leading progressive activist Ryan Knight, a labor leader with the American Postal Workers Union, and Amazon walkout organizer Chris Smalls. Bernie national delegates and former progressive congressional candidates endorsed by Brand New Congress and DSA are also joining us today. Renowned comedians, leading independent media voices, the poet, the former volunteer national high school director with Bernie 2020, leading indigenous rights and anti-war activists, nonprofit founders, a climate scientist, and leaders in the Latino and veteran communities, as well as our revolution Los Angeles, will all be with us today. And it is my great honor to say that as of last night, the Movement for a People's Party has crossed 100,000 members, 10,000 of whom joined just in the last week. And why is this? It's because we face as a society
Why could that be?
Overwhelming amount of crises that are converging. A health crisis with a pandemic that has claimed more than 180,000 lives and has at the same time seen millions of people lose their employer-based health coverage at the same time that they need it the most. A crisis, a country that is facing a reckoning with systemic racism and police brutality after the murder of George Floyd. A country in which is facing a housing crisis that is worse than anything that has been seen since the Great Depression, an economic crisis worse than that is unparalleled except for the Great Depression. So the level of crises that we face in this country indicate that we have two political parties that can no longer govern this country. They cannot provide basic needs. There's a term in political science for that. It's a failed state. Our country, the richest country in the world, is seeing right now billionaires adding more than $600 billion of wealth to their fortunes.
Anybody watching this will notice that I just fixed the audio lip sync. I apologize for the problem.
Child hunger has climbed to record levels in this country, the richest country in the history of the world. That's what has brought us together today, to examine the state of the nation in this country and to ask ourselves, are we being served by our government? It exists for us. Are we being served? And if the answer is no, what are we to do about it? At the conclusion of the program today,
that'll do
we
it.
will be holding a historic vote to form a major new political party in the United States of America.
Crime bill and a
A
cop.
party free
2020.
of corporate money and influence. The vote will be open to everyone. It will be cast through the People's Party app, which you can download on peoplesconvention.org. So
Got
please
mine out.
get the app now, prepare yourself, prepare to cast the
prepared.
vote. We will cast it at the end of the program. I would also like to say that today you're going to be hearing from various different perspectives on what to do about 2020. Who to vote for in this election. There are many different views and voices on that, but what we all agree on here at the People's Convention is that the status quo is not working and that we need a major new party free of corporate money. That is what has brought us together, and that is what I look forward to discussing today. First, we must understand, though, the challenges that we face.
Someone needs to switch over the presentation.
In these times of crisis, three billionaires possess more wealth than the bottom half of society. An eviction crisis has plagued the nation. More than 140 million people were poor and low income before the COVID-19 pandemic.
Yeah, no kidding.
To try to sustain our quest for integrity, honesty, and decency.
The projected crisis will be the most severe economic downturn since the Great Depression. The USA spends more on war than the next 10 countries combined. The climate crisis is an existential threat to humanity.
Yeah.
The impacts could be irreversible by 2030.
They probably already are. That person understands me. Do you see the earth with the YOLO? That person gets me. What are you talking about? Nebraska's sea level. Yeah, you do realize that Nebraska used to be underwater in the inland sea.
George Floyd died here, and that's why you still have this massive memorial filling this intersection behind me. And even in the rain, people are coming out to see it.
running out.
Strong punch out the gate. Okay.
Hello,
Kind of
everyone.
expected that.
It's my pleasure to introduce our first speaker for the day, Cheng-Sim Lim. Cheng-Sim Lim is the National Bernie delegate. She's a film curator, immigrant, Medicare for All activist. She serves on the board of Healthcare for All Los Angeles and is a member of the Progressive Asian Network for Action and DSA LA. And I recently had the privilege of sitting on a panel that she organized that should have been really the Democratic National Convention, the Beyond Bernie Convention, and People's Assembly. Everyone, please welcome Cheng-Sim Lim.
There's got to be a delay on their end too, huh?
Hello, People's Convention. Thank you, Nick Brana and event organizers for convening all of us here today. My name is Cheng-Sim Lim. I'm an immigrant. I came to this country 41 years ago at the start of the Reagan era. My lifetime in this country maps exactly the neoliberal ascendancy. And it is this experience of neoliberalism that values profits over human life and dignity that has brought me here today. I want to keep within my allotted time, so I'll go right to how I became a Medicare for All activist and why I think the single payer movement cannot rely on the Democratic Party. In 2007, I underwent treatment for breast cancer. That experience opened my eyes to the gross inequities of the American for-profit health insurance system. At first, I didn't understand why getting healthcare had to be so complicated. You know, my doctors had to check if what they wanted to prescribe was covered by insurance, and I would get bills months afterwards for stuff I couldn't easily decipher. Still, I was one of the lucky ones. I had health insurance. Two of my friends who were dealing with serious illnesses didn't have health insurance, even though they worked full time. Their jobs didn't come with health insurance. And I couldn't imagine going through my cancer treatment further stressed about how to pay for it. So my growing awareness of how unjust our healthcare system was led me to volunteer on the 2008 Obama campaign. Candidate Obama had a healthcare plan with a public option. By that time, I had learned enough to prefer single payer, in which everyone would have comprehensive and high quality healthcare that is publicly funded. But I had yet to learn enough not to fall for the Democratic lie. And they're still telling that lie, that the public option, which preserves everything that is wrong and costly with the current system, could be sustainable and lead to universal healthcare. It took me another year to learn as a volunteer for Organizing for America, or OFA, helping to get the Affordable Care Act passed.
It's worse on the back end, and it gets the finger pointed
at it. As a public option was, it was still only a bait and switch. Our volunteer group had collected like thousands of constituent letters to send to members of Congress for the public option. And we were puzzled why President Obama didn't seem to care to fight for a key plank of his campaign and allowed the public option to be killed in the Senate when Democrats had a filibuster-proof majority. When we asked questions, we were told by the then OFA chief, don't let the perfect be the enemy of the good. This was the Obama mantra. And this is the same OFA chief who went on to be President Obama's re-election campaign manager in 2012 and to advise the British Conservative Prime Ministers David Cameron and Theresa May on their election campaigns. I think it's telling how easily a Democratic operative can move between the Democratic and Tory parties, right? Don't you? At any rate, I subsequently learned from press accounts that the Obama administration was cutting deals behind the scenes with big pharma and hospital associations to drop the public option in exchange for their acquiescence on the ACA. This was happening while we volunteers were being told to gather support for the public option. And meanwhile, in California, where I live, we saw that Democrats could pass single-payer healthcare, which the California state legislature did in 2006 and 2008. When there was certainty, the bills wouldn't be enacted. In this case, Republican Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger vetoed both single-payer bills. But once we had a Democratic supermajority in the state and a Democratic governor, and there was no longer a Republican to give cover to Democrats to perform as progressives, but not do anything real to upset their corporate donors, Democrats couldn't pass single payer. So flash forward to 5 weeks ago, I was a Bernie delegate to the Democratic Convention. In the middle of a pandemic, when the COVID count, and it's worse now, was 4 million Americans afflicted, 150,000 dead, over 14 million newly unemployed since March and without health insurance. And you add these nightmarish numbers to the already crisis level, 70 million uninsured or underinsured before COVID. All disproportionately Latinx, Black, Indigenous, and Pacific Islanders. The Democratic Party still couldn't bring itself to acknowledge the need for life-saving Medicare for all. The DNC Platform Committee voted down Medicare for all. Then, during the Democratic Convention, while a parade of Republicans got to speak on the DNC broadcast, Bernie delegates would type in the Zoom chat of DNC meetings that we need Medicare for all and the Green New Deal, found themselves blocked from posting the rest of the meeting. That was the level of pettiness the DNC went to silence any mention of Medicare for all. I could cite other examples, but I'd run out of time. To sum up, in my lifetime in this country, I've seen no evidence the Democratic Party will deliver Medicare for all on its own. We need massive, massive pressure from the outside. One way to do that is through an anti-oligarchy People's Party that is serious about organizing to contest for power. So how about we do it?
Amen.
Thank you, Cheng Sim. If the Democratic Party cannot pass Medicare for all now, something that most wealthy countries, almost all of them, take for granted, at a time during that when we have a global pandemic, when millions of people are losing their health care, when they could pass it in the House and then they could win the election and they could still have the Republicans block it for them and the insurance companies, it is truly incredible that they cannot pass it now. And I salute the delegates that took that stand. More than 75% of Bernie's delegation that refused to vote for the Democratic Party platform as a result of its exclusion for Medicare for all. And we're going to hear more about that now, in fact, from another Bernie national delegate that I also had the pleasure of sharing a panel with. That is Hania Jodat. Hania is a national Bernie delegate, the co-founder of the Muslim Delegates and Allies. She's a founding member of the Women's March of Los Angeles, a former fundraising coordinator for the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees in USA and Australia, and a
you imagine this is like running off of Nick's laptop,
America,
this whole thing.
In Los Angeles. Hania, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Nick, and it's an honor to be here today with you and the rest of the amazing speakers. When we talk about war, we must first recognize that Black Lives Matter have long been under assault in this country, and we support the peaceful protests sweeping the globe from Los Angeles and Washington to Sydney to Rio de Janeiro, fighting for justice and equality in the face of a systemic brutality. Jacob Blake, fighting for justice, is able to still fight for his survival, unlike Freddie Gray, Breonna Taylor, Eric Garner, Philando Castile, Sandra Bland, and the many more heartbeats that have been silenced. In witnessing the domestic unrest right here in the United States of America, I can't help but face my own affliction as a child of war in Iran. Our homes were without electricity, our windows taped so the glass wouldn't shatter from explosions, sirens that often interrupted our television programs, sounding the alarm for families to seek shelter in basements as Iraqi planes flew over the blue skies of Tehran, my birth city. Mothers mourning the death of their young sons fighting in the borders of Iran, and my own grandmother who clenched her rosary bead, praying, holding my small hands in hers, asking God to protect her children and granddaughter, me. Little did we know that the Iraqis we were taught to fear were our sisters and brothers sharing the same wounds and trauma. Now it is time to link the Black Lives Matter movement with the peace and justice movement, to shout, demilitarize and defund the police, but also defund the military as protesters march against the intersection between militarism at home in the form of tear gas, rubber bullets, armored vehicles, and the deployment of unmarked federal troops to snatch citizens off the streets with militarism abroad, characterized by regime change, US counterinsurgencies, and decade-long trillion-dollar occupations of Iraq and Afghanistan, and extrajudicial drone warfare. A history of Western colonialism followed by brutal sanctions, occupation, and destabilization efforts are the overwhelming cause of the surge of hundreds and thousands of refugees flooding across European borders today. Major European NATO powers continue to collude with the US imperialism in each war. Massive numbers of displaced refugees are migrating from countries that are victims of the US military and its allies' aggression: Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Libya, Syria, and Palestine. Not one of these conflicts can be justified under humanitarian purposes, yet each of the source of the enormous profit in the form of private military contracts for American and European corporations. Now it is the time to demand an end to state sanctioned violence targeting human beings for the color of their skin, be it those who cross our borders, refugees of US intervention in Latin and Central America, or those who are not citizens of the United States, born from Native American genocide in a country built on the branded backs of African slaves. Now it is time to declare an end to the failed and inhumane war on terror, repeal the authorization of US military failed and inhumane war on military force that greenlights US aggression anywhere, anytime, to link Islamophobia with the scapegoating of Muslims at home, to a foreign policy that sanctions drone bombings on multiple majority Muslim countries. The cost of this institutionalized violence at home and abroad is tremendous. Tragic health outcomes for people of color, fearful of walking, driving, and sleeping while Black. 20 soldier suicides on an average day for those returning from Iraq and Afghanistan. According to a 2016 analysis from the Department of Veterans Affairs, national outrage and polarization with members of armed militias reminiscent of fascist Germany's brown shirts killing Black Lives Matter protesters in the streets of Kenosha, Wisconsin. Just as the cost of policing in major cities like Los Angeles and New York City can account for over 50% of general fund, the US's 700 billion military budget, more than the military budgets of the next 8 countries combined, subsidizing 800 military bases in over 80 countries, cost the taxpayers 54 cents on every discretionary dollar. Meanwhile, rampant ill treatment of our homeless stains our souls. Indebted college students live in poverty, and our fire department holds pancake breakfast to raise desperately needed funds. It is not enough to demilitarize the police. We must also demilitarize our approach to a foreign policy that is consistently the cause of violence around the world. Defund the police, defund the military. Let us move forward with this peace movement. Thank you, Nick.
Thank you, Hanieh, for reporting back on the Democratic National Convention and sharing your own personal story as an immigrant to the United States as well, just like Cheng Sim, and the disappointments of the Democratic Party in being a similar war party like the Republican Party. Our next speaker is a comedian. He is a creator of the Earbuds, a podcasting documentary, and he is also the host of the Political Vigilante, and he is here to speak to us and do some live comedy.
Graham Elwood, my
Welcome,
boy.
Graham Elwood.
Come on, Graham, where you at? There he is. Look at him.
Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and it's an honor to be here at the first ever People's Convention after watching those 2 train wrecks of the Republican and Democratic Party conventions. Like, wow, it's unbelievable. The Democrats' platform is Trump bad, Trump bad. And then the Republicans, man, I thought I was watching Triumph of the Will. And of course, they call Joe Biden a Marxist. Man, I wish Joe Biden was a Marxist. Boy, that would
be excited.
That would actually get me excited if Joe Biden was a Marxist. Neither party offered anything. Neither party wants to defund the police. Neither party wants to address climate change. The Republicans don't even think it exists. The Democrats just, we're going to green up our military. Yes, I'm sure the people in the Middle East are going to be ecstatic knowing that they're getting bombed by rockets powered by biodiesel. It's ridiculous to listen to both parties. None of them want Medicare for all. None of them want to get money out of politics. And we're constantly stuck with this lesser of two evils thing. That's all they tell us, the lesser of two evils. Nowhere else in American society would anybody accept this. Politics affects every aspect of our daily lives. You're watching this on the internet, your internet provider, there's a tax, there's legislation. That's politics. It affects everything. Did you buy something today? You paid a sales tax. That's politics. And yet this thing that affects every area of our life, we're only given the lesser of two evils. Nowhere else would Americans accept this. Can you imagine if advertisers were like, the all-new Chevy Malibu, just not as crappy as the Ford Taurus? There's no way we would accept that. Honey, it's date night. We need a sitter for the kids. There's only two babysitters to choose from, a pedophile and a meth head. I don't know about you. I'd go meth head because at least the kids would have activities. The guy'd be twitching around. Maybe they get a fun face tattoo. This is what they offer us, the lesser of two evils. And then the Republican Party is obviously awful. Trump is awful. I don't like them. But the Democrats, pragmatic centrism. Joe Biden has said now's not the time for revolution. That's right. Revolutions always happen when things are going great. Hey guys, when there's a vaccine and the economy's back to normal and everybody's got a job and the cops aren't out of control, we're not bombing 7 countries, then we'll start the revolution. That's when it starts, when everything's going great. Like, thank God Biden and Pelosi and that crowd weren't alive, like in power during the civil rights movement. They'd be like, hey, Rosa Parks, this front of the bus thing, it's causing problems. It's kind of a purity test. Do you think maybe you could just move to the middle of the bus? In fact, start at the back, move up 1 row at a time, wait a couple years, get bipartisan support, and then move up another row. That's their plan for everything. And when they wanted to get rid of Trump, their solution was impeachment. Not, I don't know, here's a crazy idea. Back a progressive that had the biggest grassroots following of any politician in the history of the country? No. Let's go impeachment, which was terrifying because I don't want Trump to be in power, but then that would have put Mike Pence. He's even crazier than Trump. What would President Pence do, right? Shock the gay out of people and outlaw lunch with women? Like, he said he's afraid he'd be too tempted by having lunch with a woman. What happens, Mike, when you have lunch with a woman? Are you just like, how dare you bring your boobs to lunch? Like, this is our choices are the lesser of two rapists? Like, this is insane. And there's no progressive policy from anybody, not even from
projection in its highest order.
The Democrats, even the progressives in the Democratic Party have all folded. That's all they have to say is that, like, not even, they don't even want to legalize marijuana, which we've seen. It would benefit so many people in this country. Look at Colorado. Look how it's done economically. And I'm going to end on this. We need to legalize weed. I'm sober, but this country's on the brink of a civil war. We need to smoke some weed. Imagine if Trump smoked weed. He wouldn't want to build a wall around Mexico. He'd just be down at the border going, we should start a music festival. Hey, Pence, you want to hit that? So thank you so much for allowing me to be on the honor to be on this panel with everybody. And I really hope Jesse Ventura and Nina Turner run for president with this party, because they would have my vote. I would take a bullet for both of them. Check out what I do at GrahamElwood.com. Thank you so much.
He's going to have to hold it. There you go.
Graham Elwood, everybody. Graham Elwood, everybody. And I swear, did the Democratic convention happen? Because I only saw 2 Republican conventions, 2 weeks of Republican. Who decided to give the Republicans 2 conventions?
The Democrats did
this year. Next up, we have an award-winning actor and humanitarian, someone you will all know as a Bernie 2020 surrogate, UNICEF ambassador, former Goodwill ambassador to the United Nations Development Program.
Do we have Goodwill
recipient
ambassadors?
Of multiple NAACP awards and Emmy nominations, supporter of many unions,
Better question.
particularly postal workers unions. Please welcome Danny Glover.
Thank you, Nick. Boy, it's hard to follow up Graham Elwood. You know, he had us all early in the morning, is it here, and early in the afternoon here, looking at and bringing some humor to this moment. Sometimes we want to laugh, but we deal with the reality of what it is right now. We're voting, understanding we're voting under Biden's name simply to get rid of Trump. And perhaps the idea of building a party, building a people's party from the bottom up, and I think it has to be from the bottom up, to talk about, to support the issues and support the struggles of workers, unions, nurses, teachers, and everything else. We have to really talk about fundamentally about education and education as a constitutional right. Quality education is a constitutional right. We have to really talk about so many different things that are left off the platform, but we know that all these issues reside in certainly creating the kind of party, creating the kind of will, and building that kind of will that's necessary for us for the future to deal with climate change. As my sister Judith Barnes talked about foreign policy, we don't deal with the issue of foreign policy here. We are always confronted with the issue of regime change wherever it is in the world. It has been such a long policy that has been consistent after administration after administration and after administration. Right. So the things that we have to talk about, you know, I remember as working with the African Liberty Support Committees in the 70s, and understanding that even with the will that was responsive to the freedom of those countries, there was always the underlying regime change that went on within those countries as well. So I think that our platform is full, but we have to kind of be consistent in the voices that really talk about what we really need, what people need at this desperate time, and those are evident. Those things are evident when we think about healthcare. The things are evident when we think about employment. We think about the vulgar focus on returning to the marketplace. Returning to the marketplace. Those are the jobs that are there that were there when we had a functioning quote unquote marketplace, when we had a growing marketplace and everything, aren't going to be there anymore. So those are the things that I think that are important to understand. How do we look at work? What is the relationship that we have for work? And how do we create the kind of transformative work and the kind of work that certainly it helps us develop as human beings and help us develop our communities. But we have to take this moment and do the work that we have to do. We're in the face of fascism, growing fascism, in the face of what's happening in the streets where peaceful protesters are being attacked, viciously attacked. We have to begin to take this moment and understand that if we don't act now, if we don't do something now, we're preparing ourselves in a dark moment than we can ever imagine, a darker moment than we can ever imagine. Thank you again for allowing me to say my few words, and I look forward to listening to other comments of others as well. Thank you so much. And the idea that I'm on a Zoom call with many people whose work I've read, whose work I've appropriated it sometimes in my own language and understanding. Thank you.
I can understand that.
Thank you, Danny. I believe this is probably also the most remarkable Zoom call I've ever been on, as all of the speakers can attest to.
I feel cool just being a part of this moment.
And you're very right to say that if we don't fight now, there will be nothing left to fight for.
Way to bring it the fuck down, Nick.
Our next speaker is going to speak exactly to that topic. It's my pleasure to introduce NASA Jet Propulsion Laboratory climate scientist.
This guy can't
Dr.
possibly know what he's talking about.
He's a former Bernie 2020 surrogate. He got his PhD in physics
Sounds like
from
a
Columbia
fucking hack.
University.
Does this guy
and
blog on
received
the internet?
NASA's Early Career Public Achievement Medal. A very accomplished climate scientist who is here to tell us about why we need a People's Party. He speaks, of course, as all speakers, on his own behalf. Peter, it's great to have you.
Thanks, Nick. So, yeah, I'm a scientist, a climate scientist. I'm also a human. I'm a father. I'm a citizen, and I am terrified of what I'm seeing coming down. What's here right now, and what's coming in the future with climate breakdown and ecological breakdown. We're all feeling it right now. We're feeling the wildfires in the West. We're feeling the hurricanes.
I'm under heat advisory.
In the Southeast. We're feeling the floods in the Midwest. We have climate migrants on the rise. We have ice sheets melting. We have ocean circulations that we count on for our weather shutting down. We have threats to our food system and our water system.
Someone in the YouTube chat said he
just
looks like a superhero.
At the very beginning of what we're going to experience over the next few years and decades. And that's why I'm here today. I can't see what I'm seeing.
He does have
and sit
amazing
on the
hair though,
sidelines.
right?
It's literally impossible for me not to speak out and sound the alarm. You know, some people might call me an alarmist, but I don't think I am, because I think the alarm is absolutely, completely justified by the mountain of scientific evidence. And now you don't even need to be a scientist to know what's happening. You can feel it in the heat waves. You can feel it in your lungs when you go for days and days during wildfire smoke. People are dying now. People are having their livelihoods wrecked. They're having their homes destroyed. They're moving from other nations up towards the poles. Later this century, if we don't have a radical change of course, a very large band around the equator, we're talking something like 1 billion people, could end up needing to migrate towards the poles because the humid heat will be too much for their bodies to actually survive in. And this isn't science fiction.
That's going to be
the thing
fun.
That gets me. It's not the new normal. We're on an escalator basically toward getting worse. It's going to stay getting worse and worse until we have massive, rapid, radical systems change. To do that, we need policies. We basically
Can you imagine 1 billion
policies
people migrating
that would
all at once,
destroy
basically?
the fossil fuel industry, because we're not talking about.
I mean, it's not going to
just
be all at once, but it's going to be over a
reducing
short
it
period
little
of
bit.
time.
We're not talking about a 10% reduction in the fossil fuels that we burn and the greenhouse gas emissions that we emit every year. We're talking about going down to zero on a massively fast time scale, which means a radical transformation of society, our energy systems, transportation systems, the way we work, the way we eat, the way we interact with other nations. It's radical. The time for incremental change is completely over. And what I've noticed over the decades, I've been terrified about this for 15 years, and I've been an activist and a scientist for 15 years. And both parties are clearly beholden to the fossil fuel industry. It's as simple as that. Both parties take donations. One party certainly is in hard denial. They actually say this is a hoax, which is just makes my head explode. But the other party also takes donations. The other party also participates in the revolving door. They have campaign advisors who are lobbyists for the fossil fuel industry, for fracking, and for the oil industry. It's crazy. Just recently, the DNC said that they would
Someone in
not
chat just
end
said,
fossil fuel subsidies.
Fascist Party says what?
No-brainer. This huge billion, even by some estimates, trillion globally dollar handouts to the wealthiest industry, one of the wealthiest industries the planet's ever known. It's a no-brainer to stop that. And the Democratic Party can't even say that they're going to stop fossil fuel subsidies, let alone do the Green New Deal that we need. So it's clear to me that the fossil fuel industry will keep fighting dirty. When their survival is at stake, because we need to shut them down with policies, they will fight 10 times as hard as they ever have. They'll continue buying off politicians, and they'll continue misinforming the lying, just baldly lying to the public about what's actually happening on our planet. So we need a party, we need a political system that is not beholden to them, that is independent, that doesn't take corporate money and does what the people want and does what the planet needs and not what the corporations want. You know, I just want to do science. I want to raise my family on a planet that's not burning. I want the coral reefs to stay alive. I want policies that end this nightmare of global heating and climate and ecological breakdown. This is a task of cosmic importance. The decisions we make in the next few years will affect humanity and our planet for thousands and even in some ways for millions of years. Thank you.
Dr. Kalmus. Thank you, Dr. Kalmus. Very much appreciate you being here to share that very grim perspective, having studied climate science myself in college, and having worked on the bill in 2009 to cap carbon emissions, a cap and trade bill. I saw the way that Barack Obama and his administration were elected on the promise of fighting the climate crisis, and then reneged on it once they were elected, and how the White House did not put pressure on it. And we couldn't even get a cap and trade, which was itself considered a suboptimal solution to things like a carbon tax. And so that was 10 years ago. We have barely budged from that position. In fact, we have gone backwards from that position now. So this is existential. Our next speaker is our youngest speaker of the day. She is our national student coordinator with Students for a People's Party. She is also the founder of Beyond Bernie, and a founding director of Our Time, Our Revolution's student organization. She's also a YDSA member and the former volunteer national high school director with Bernie 2020. Amaya Wangeshi.
Hi, everyone. This is Amaya Wangeshi. I'm so excited and honored to be here, not only just because I see this as such a pivotal and essential moment in US history, but because I have the absolute honor of speaking on my favorite thing in politics, student organizing. I remember whenever I first became involved in politics, I think I was in 6th or 7th grade. I would love to say that that came about through love, but it really just came out of frustration.
Like so many of us.
I was frustrated at the world, the problems that we had. I was frustrated at the people in this world because I didn't understand how we could still have certain problems, such inhumane problems. But most importantly, and most fiercely, I was frustrated at how small I felt. I was a little girl looking at a big world with adult problems that came with adult enemies, and I felt oh so small. Everyone I had asked had told me there's nothing I could do. They told me I was too young. What they really meant is that I was too small. Nonetheless, I absolutely refused that. I saw that as an excuse, a justification for their own lack of participation in our democracy. So I dove straight in. I knew that this war that we're waging against injustice and hate and evil and oppression needed all the soldiers they could get. It was really all hands on deck. And I was eager to even give and contribute my little middle schooler hands. I share this story with you all today because I understand that so many young people have gone through similar things. We've constantly been told what we can and what we can't do. We've been told what's realistic, feasible, and practical. We've been told what we're capable of. I just want to take this moment to say thank you to all of my young organizers out there. Thank you for fanning your spark into a flame and for caring enough about what's happening in the world and not caring one bit about who says what we can do. This persistence and this resilience is so ineffably imperative, and I really love that about us. My absolute favorite thing is not just our determination, but how unwavering we are. We are so confident in what we believe in, and we understand that it's not up for grabs. There's no place nor time for negotiation, for debates. We understand that our core ideals cannot and mustn't be sacrificed nor compromised. This is something that I actually think adults, you need to learn from us. Be proud of what you believe in. Be proud of what is right and believe in it with all that you have. Fight for it with all that you got. On the left, as a collective, We need to be serious about consolidating, about centralizing, about having a united front, because that is the only way we're going to get through this together. One great individual is great, but two will always be greater. We must focus and heed the salience of accumulating government power, both inside and outside of our government. We must be together, we must fight, and we mustn't cower down. We mustn't go with what is normal, what we're used to, what we're comfortable with. We only have a couple of chances to get this right. We are fighting for the very remnant of our humanity, and it is up to us to take back our own power. Not that someone just randomly took it from us, but we voluntarily gave it away. Please fight. If you believe in what a people's party could be, if you believe in what a major third party in this nation could be, then that should be the end of discussion. Fight for it. Believe in it. Have hope. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I hope you stay safe. I hope you stay organizing. And I hope you remember to vote.
For who? What?
Thank you so much for your time.
Vote? What? What a weird end.
Thank you, Amaya. Amaya is one of the most remarkable
so
organizers
confused.
I've ever met. We have so much to learn from her generation. She's half my age. I cannot believe there are organizers half my
think
age that
Ventura.
are as talented and dedicated as she is. And
I'm voting for
it's
the
an
other
honor to
Biden.
have her working with us as student coordinator. And of course, she and her generation represent those who will be the most affected by the climate crisis, on which
Dude, that was crazy.
both political parties and corporations have known about for almost a half a century without seriously lifting a finger to do something about it. Our next speaker
And I really
is
liked her too.
someone
I really liked
who
her speech.
got national attention when he led a walkout out of a Staten Island
Christian
Amazon
Smalls.
warehouse. When management forced employees to continue working despite an outbreak of coronavirus
That
at
they knew about.
the warehouse. Please welcome Chris Smalls, who is the founder of the Congress of Essential Workers. Chris, it's great to have you with us.
Thank you, Nick. Thank you for having me. And thank you, People's Party, for putting this amazing convention together with all these prominent people and vessels of this movement in time and history. For those who don't know me, my story, my name is Chris Smalls, former Amazon employee from Staten Island, JFK 8. Back in March, when this pandemic hit this country, I stood up for what I thought was right. I wasn't an organizer beforehand. I was a concerned parent, a concerned father, a concerned supervisor. And what I stood up for was not only for health and safety concerns, it was for our very own communities that we live in. What you've seen on March 30th changed my life forever. I held a protest. 2 hours later, Amazon decided to terminate me. This goes to tell you, America, capitalism doesn't separate itself from racism. They terminated me. They put a target on my back because of the color of my skin and because of what I did.
You say because of what you're saying too.
Don't let
Man.
him spin it any other way. Let him put these things out in the media that I violated any type of social distancing violations that didn't exist. What we're talking about here is the fact that making a stance in these unprecedented times is very necessary. Doing what you never thought you would be subject to doing in life is what we're talking about here. This moment in time in history is very important for our younger generation. It was a no-brainer for me to do what I did. It was inhumane for me to sit back on the sidelines and do nothing. I sit here proudly to say that I don't have no regrets about my lost job. Working for Jeff Bezos, who is now a $200 billion man, was probably the worst decision of my life. And doing what I did on March 30th was the best decision of my life. Now I'm a catalyst in this labor movement and the social injustice movement. I've been traveling all over the country with my organization that I founded in mid-April, the Congress of Essential Workers, TCOEW, a coalition of workers from all over the nation, from all different backgrounds, Black, brown communities, indigenous communities, immigrants. We all came together, formed this alliance, and continue to stand in the streets and advocate on our very own demands of the working class people and the communities that we live in. Some of these demands are very basic. Medicare for all, something that we should all have as American citizens. The raising of minimum wage to $30 per hour.
You say 30?
People are saying that we are unskilled, untrained workers.
Right.
And I tell everybody that say that we don't deserve $30 an hour, that you're being ignorant and being blinded and brainwashed, that we do not deserve that. As a warehouse worker, working with Amazon since 2015, there's no 4-year accredited college in this nation that could teach you the things that you have to learn in the warehouse. Everybody that came to that gets hired with any company has to go through a training period. And then I tell you, if you teach me something, I will learn it. So we gotta get out of that mentality and understand that this is not the new norm for us. We have to create this. The youth generation, I'm looking to you and I see what you're doing. I've been in the streets with the younger generation and I'm so proud and I'm so happy that we are continuing to fight. Over this past weekend, we were just down in Washington, D.C. in front of Jeff Bezos' mansion, $23 million mansion. And the media want to make headlines about the guillotine that was set up in front of his property, more so than the voices of the stories of the employees that used to work for him or still work for him. And I'm here to say that I'm not going to allow the media to drown out our voices, just like Amazon tried to drown out my voice when they terminated me back on March 30th. You may have read about it, you may have not read about it, but they also tried to run a smear campaign on me. Jeff Bezos, the richest man in the world, was in that conversation when this leaked memo was leaked to the public. This leaked memo said that I'm not smart or articulate, and I should be the face of the whole union organizing for Amazon. And I want to say thank you, David Sapolsky, because you gave me the best idea ever to become a face of this movement. And that's exactly what I continue to do. And that's exactly what I continue to stand for.
Like the Barbra Streisand effect.
As you know, 12 billionaires in this country have accumulated over $1 trillion of wealth during the course of this pandemic, while more than half the country is unemployed.
Those aren't even real numbers,
And
man.
As you know, the richest man in the world is on pace to be the first trillionaire in history. This is not something that we should be praising. This is something that we should be very aware of, scared of, because these billionaires do not represent this country at all. They put profits above people. People have died to accumulate their wealth for them, and they are not taking care of the Black community, the brown community, the indigenous communities, the immigrants communities at all. We all need to take this moment in time, as COVID-19 is still here, we need to take this moment in time to fight back. And that is the future that I see America going towards. And if these candidates like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris do not represent us, we're putting them on notice starting today with this People's Party movement. I'm letting it be known. I had 9 senators sign a letter on my behalf to Jeff Bezos, 9 of them. Kamala Harris was one of them. Elizabeth Warren, Bernie Sanders, Cory Booker. I'm saying to all of you that wrote a letter on my behalf, and not just my behalf, to all the workers that were exploited during these times, we need you guys to take action if you're really representing the power of the people, or if you're trying to represent a message to your constituents that stands in solidarity with the working class people. Enough is enough. I think the younger generation, and myself included, are tired of the Democratic Party doing a lot of lip service and not enough action. So we're looking for a new way out, and the third party may be the way to go. And I believe this is the foundation, and this coalition that we formed here today with these speakers and stories will be the way of the future. And I want to make sure that I'm a catalyst and a vessel for that movement and the younger generation, because I'm looking to see my kids grow up in a society where they don't have to be subjected to social justice or racial inequalities when they're in the workforce. So please, people, let's take this moment in time in history. Let's come together as Black and brown and all peoples of all different backgrounds and creeds. Let's stand together in solidarity. Do not, I repeat, do not stop fighting. Do not stop marching in these streets. Let's continue to mobilize. Let's continue to be strategic. We have to fight back because the time is now. There will not be another chance after this. We want to look back on this opportunity 5 years from now and say, where was you during COVID-19? Ask yourselves that. Where were you during this moment in time in history? Did you sit back and do nothing, or were you really a part of the movement for change? And I'm going to say, I make a pledge and I encourage everybody to join me, join my organization, join any organization in your community that is fighting for the change that is very much needed in society today. And that being said, be safe out there and please vote.
For who?
Chris Smalls, everyone. Chris Smalls, everyone. It's absolutely unconscionable to think that we have two political parties and a set of oligarchs that are continuing to try
you
to
should start with the.
our public services, attacking
at least start with the intent of the vote,
their
right?
own employees at a time when people are already suffering to such a great extent. And so, Chris, I'm sorry for what happened to you at Amazon, but I am glad that you are now a national voice, that you are giving voice to people who didn't have it before this crisis. Our next speaker is likewise giving a voice to those who don't have it. He is the president of the American Postal Workers Union of Vermont, which has endorsed the Movement for a People's Party. He is on the executive council of the Vermont AFL-CIO. He is, of course, defending the union, which is now under relentless attack by the Trump administration in an effort to question the validity of the vote by mail. But also, as he will share, probably, I'm sure, is the United States Postal Service has been under attack really for decades. And the resolutions that have challenged it the most were passed by the Democratic and the Republican Party, efforts to defund the postal service. And so next, it's great to introduce you to Omar Fernandez, president of the APWU of Vermont.
Hello, everyone. My name is Omar Fernandez. I am the president of the American Postal Workers Union of Vermont, and I also am the vice president of the Postal Workers of Vermont for the AFL-CIO. Now, why do I mention these things? The reason I mention those titles is not to impress anyone. The only reason I even bring up those titles is because I received those titles because of the consent of my sisters and brothers in the state of Vermont. They gave me permission to represent them through everything that we need to go through. I'm going to come back to that because we need to come together on things that we can agree upon.
I love the glasses.
So, and absolutely, the American Postal Workers Union of Vermont endorses the Movement for a People's Party. I've only been doing this for a very short years. I've only been working for the post office for 6 years, and I've only been president for 3-4 years. And I've learned, and I've been frustrated that both parties are not doing what they need to do to take care of the Postal Service. I know some of my brothers and sisters out there want to say that somebody here and somebody there is helping us. That's absolutely true. They are, in both sides, Republican and Democrats are both helping us, but not enough. There's too much excuses, too much of, well, we can't because this, we can't because this person hasn't jumped in and all that. That needs to stop. We need a third party because they have two parties already. The oligarchs and the corporations already have two parties that take care of them. We need a party to take care of us. Just want to go over the history of the Postal Service. In 1970, there was a wildcat strike that was created around that area where we decided, went against the laws and everything and formed the American Postal Workers Union. After that, everything was going great. All of a sudden, the Congress wanted to do an analysis.
The troll showed up in chat finally.
They wanted to see how badly we were doing. But what did they find out?
Took them over an hour.
They found out that the Postal Service overpaid retirement some people say 75 billion, some people say 100 billion have been overpaid during that time. Now, right after that, they came out with a law called the PAEA. This law, passed in 2006 by a lame duck session of Congress by both parties, is what put the concrete around our necks to try to drown us. We still have been surviving because you have been out there supporting us. This law, if it wasn't for this law that makes us pay 75 years in advance of retirement, if it wasn't for that law, the Postal Service would have operating profits in the last 6 years. I'm going to repeat that again. If it wasn't for this PAEA law that was passed, we would have 6 years of profits, and no one would be able to say that the Postal Service was not doing well. Now that I talked about that, and all that stuff was very important, I want to thank the people for supporting the Postal Service. You guys, because of you, things have been taking place that are absolutely amazing. The American Postal Workers Union have been screaming, yelling this for many years about how they've been trying to privatize us. Staples tried to do it. We went against it, all those kind of things. But because of the people, you guys actually forced the Postmaster General to stop doing what he's doing until after the ballots are put in, until after this election. So it doesn't look like they're even doing anything. But I want to let you know, folks, we need to keep going even after that. This is your service. This is your Postal Service. We make the money that we make because you use us. You take care of us. The roads that we have is because of the Postal Service and the power of the people behind us. Do not lose your service. Just want to let you know, in Vermont, in my plant, White River Junction, they took out a facing machine, a cancellation machine, with the idea of them saying, oh, we're going to put in a new one, and so that it could even be better. They still have not done that. It's been about a month and a half, 2 months that they've done that, and they still have not been replacing it. And what do they say? What are the excuse that they say? They say because volume is low. That is absolutely incorrect. If volume is low, then why is overtime high? Absolutely, we have some brothers and sisters that have been out, but that mail is coming in. Those packages are coming in. All that work that machine was doing is being done manually. Now, if they want to go ahead and keep out the machine and have more people come in to do it manually, I'm for it. We have a great job. I love working for the Postal Service. I love our universal mandate that we have to take care of the people. That is a pride that we have when we serve our people. And there was one other thing. Over in Manchester, New Hampshire, there was a machine that was taken out, anywhere from a $20,000, $30,000 machine was taken out and sold for $2,000 for parts, ladies and gentlemen. These are our machines that they're giving away for nothing, for next to nothing. Now let's talk about the most important thing in all of this. The most important thing in all of us is you, is me. We need to stick together. Let us come together on things we can agree upon. No one is a better advocate for you than you. It's something that I tell my brothers and sisters in the union. We need to come together. We need to stay together and not let anything divide us whatsoever. Not let anything whatsoever divide us. There's some scriptures that I love. The scriptures that I love, written in the Word of God. It says in 1 John 4:17, as he is, so are we in this world, ladies and gentlemen. We are God's. Jesus himself said in Psalms 82:6 and in John 10:34, didn't I say that you are God's? Look it up. Don't believe me, it's in there. One thing that I want you to do, almost done here, I want you to call your senators. I want you to use this number, 833-924-0085. Again, 833-924-0085. 0085 and tell them to pass the money that we need to keep the Postal Service going. We are an organization that is nonprofit and works on the services that we provide. But because of COVID and because of that PAEA, that's the reason our money is low.
The chat is lighting up with atheism. I love this.
The power that you have, my sisters and brothers. It's a poem by Marianne Williamson. It's called Our Greatest Fear. It says, our greatest fear, it is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate.
Yeah, he can have freedom of religion.
Our deepest fear is that
I'm
we
all
are
game
more
for that. I just find it funny that the chat is reacting this way.
It is our light, not our darkness, that most frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not?
No worries.
You are a child.
Dude, the chat on YouTube is lighting up with, hey, we're atheists here too. Get your religion out of here.
There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people who feel insecure around you. We were born to make manifest the glory of God that is within us. It is not just in some of us. It is.
Yeah, I want to support your freedom of religion, and how I support your freedom of religion to be able to do this is by keeping it out of our politics.
To do the same. One more time. As we let our light shine, we unconsciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our own fear, our presence automatically liberates others. Folks, let your light shine. Let's get this party started. Let's keep together. Let us not divide. Let us come together and get things done. Thank you so much for your time, brothers and sisters. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you,
Someone
Omar.
said, "Lighten up, atheists."
We're so grateful to have your support at APWU for the Movement for a People's Party.
Yeah, it just.
And you can know that the Movement for a People's Party is there for you.
It just hiccuped on me
and
too.
You can call on us anytime that you need, because that's what we believe on as a new party. We believe that a new party needs to stand with postal workers. It needs to stand with workers in general. And so to all of us on the call, I'm sure we will be there to defend the Postal Service and the postal unions.
I think it's planned to go till
their
6.
Time of need.
But
our next speaker has sent in a video from his comedy special. He is a renowned comedian, host of Redacted
Lee
Tonight. This clip, which he has sent us, is from his newest comedy special, performed at the El Rey Theater in Los Angeles. Lee Camp.
It's like a game if I can guess the leftists.
He's a catastrophe, but here's the thing. I'm going to say his name probably 1 to 2 more times throughout this hour. And the reason is because he's a fucking symptom. He's not the cause of our problems, all right? He's a symptom. He's a visual representation of how fucked up shit has gotten. He's just a boil that has risen up, and now we can all see it. And the mask has come off, and we're like, oh, there it is. Oh,
I found it.
Oh, I didn't know how bad it got until I saw that thing. But he's not the cause. And we have the resistance, the faux resistance, the Mick resistance, the corporate Dems and the mainstream media, and they're like, we're the resistance! Oh, really? You're gonna stop the big banks from exploiting all of us? Well, no, not on the big banks. No. We're the resistance! Oh, you're gonna stand up to big pharma so that people can fucking afford their medication? No, not on pharma. But otherwise, we're the resistance! Oh, you're gonna stand up against private prisons and the fact that we're imprisoning everybody in this goddamn country? Well, no, not on that. But we're the resistance! Oh, you're gonna stop the wars around the world that are killing innocent civilians? Well, no, not on that. Well, then what the fuck are you resisting? What are you resisting?
Just about nothing.
And they're like, well, we're opposed to porn stars.
Camp, everyone.
What?
Hope you enjoyed that. You can find the whole comedy special on YouTube for free. Released just recently. It's hilarious. I recommend it very highly.
They should have faded it. That was super
I also want to give
an
an update on the People's Convention overall. So I have just learned that we are top 10 trending in the United States of America right now. All of you here in the People's Convention, that's you're doing. This is your party that we're building right here. Number 9 trending along with People's Party. So way to go, everyone. Let's keep it up. Next up, we have the National Director of Move to Amend, President of the Board of Directors of Democracy Unlimited, and a local democracy fellow with the Liberty Tree Foundation. It is Caitlin Sapasi Belknap.
Hi, everyone. My name is Caitlin Sapasi Belknap, and I'm honored and excited to be here today in such distinguished company, which includes, of course, the thousands and thousands of you who are tuning in because you've had it with the corporate party duopoly. I also want to give a shout out to my fellow Greens who are here. I've been a Green since I turned 18, so I want to acknowledge my sisters and brothers who have known for a long time that this shit is rigged. I'm here today in my capacity as National Director of Move to Amend. Move to Amend is a grassroots movement to pass the We the People Amendment to the Constitution to make clear that only human beings have constitutional rights, and to make clear that the ability to exercise our First Amendment free speech rights and have influence over elections should have nothing to do with how much money we have. Last year, Movement for a People's Party endorsed Move to Amend, and I hope that you'll do the same at movetoamend.org. And the Movement for a People's Party adopted the principles of our amendment in the initial party platform, which is certainly more than can be said for the Republican Party, who embrace Citizens United with glee, and the Democratic Party, who pay lip service to ending corporate rule, but whose leadership serves at the behest of their Wall Street funders. Ending corporate rule is foundational to making real the promise of democracy, a promise that has never fully been fulfilled in the United States, and whose blessings are less attainable with every minute that Republicans or the Democratic Party hold power. Our Constitution has been hijacked by corporations.
Ubuntu in the chat.
Whenever a local community or state is able to organize its people to fight back and to pass a law or measure to try to rein in corporate power, whether over our food, our health, our safety, our wages, our environment, or our elections, giant corporations hold the ultimate trump card in that they can sue our government, in effect sue we the people, and get the courts to strip away our efforts at self-government over our economic institutions. What does this look like? This looks like Monsanto suing the state of California because they don't want to have to label that Roundup causes cancer. So they claim that my state's labeling laws violate their constitutional rights, and winning because the courts uphold their rights over those of we the people. Or it looks like coal companies suing states and using the argument that environmental regulations are a takings of property under the Fifth Amendment, so that our communities, already strapped for cash, are forced to pay for the profits coal companies would have made if we want to keep protecting our public and our environmental health. Or it looks like states trying to protect their local businesses who are up against the Walmarts of the world, but instead the Supreme Court has stripped communities of the freedom to decide which businesses to foster by using the 14th Amendment's Equal Protection Clause on behalf of multinational corporations. The 14th Amendment was intended to ensure equal protection for African Americans after slavery. All of these examples are real cases that are happening right now or that have already happened as part of the court-created doctrine of corporate personhood, which is why we must pass the We the People Amendment to put a stop to this. Until we make clear that only human beings have constitutional rights, companies will continue to win against us in court because our legal system prioritizes corporate rights over human rights. And democracy is impossible under these conditions, just like it's impossible when a tiny fraction of the people hold 99% of the wealth and political power, and the rest of us are left to squabble over crumbs. But now in 2020, we're coming together to say enough. No more squabbling. Working people have had it. If we want to control our destiny, if we want to live in a world that isn't racked by racism or colonization or misogyny or climate disasters, we have to stand up and stop accepting our future being determined by a greedy minority whose only agenda is gobbling up everything for themselves. Vote however your conscience tells you to in November, but the time is now to build a major new party for working people in America, free from corporate and billionaire influence, that takes all that we have learned in the fight for independent political parties over the last 25 years and applies it to our current challenges and our current opportunities. We're on the precipice as a country and as a species. The America that we have known is a failure, and nearly everything needs to change. And we know this in our hearts. We have so much work before us, but we can do it because we have to. Let's embrace new visions that draw on old wisdom and bury the structures of oppression and exploitation that entrench the Democratic and Republican parties and the forces that own them. I'm so very honored to be here with you to start this party, and I can't wait to see what we'll accomplish. And please do join us at Move to Amend in passing the We the People Amendment to end corporate rule. You can do that at movetoamend.org.
That one was good.
Caitlin, it's an honor. Thank you for your comments. That is the fire that we need to start a major new party. Our next speaker is someone who likewise brings that fire and adds to it a real tradition of American intellectualism, which unfortunately is not the norm. We have the Pulitzer Prize-winning journalist, former foreign correspondent for the New York Times, Middle East bureau chief, and Balkan bureau chief.
I need like a buzzer.
New York Times, author of several best-selling books, writes for many national publications.
Who is this leftist? Who is this leftist? Go!
RT America show On Contact, Chris Hedges.
See, I win.
Thanks, Nick, and thanks for letting me speak with such impressive people, some of whom I know and most of whom I know about. There is only one choice in this election, and that is the consolidation of oligarchic power under Donald Trump or the consolidation of oligarchic power
yes.
under Joe Biden. The oligarchs with Trump or Biden will win again, and we will lose. The oligarchs made it abundantly clear, should Bernie Sanders have miraculously become the Democratic Party nominee, they would join forces with the Republicans.
That's correct.
To crush him. The oligarchs preach the mantra of the least worst to us when they attempt to ram a Hillary Clinton or a Joe Biden down our throats, but ignore it for themselves. They prefer Biden over Trump, but they can live with either. Only one thing matters to the oligarchs. It is not democracy. It is not truth. It is not the consent of the governed. It is not income inequality. It is not the surveillance state. It is not endless war. It is not jobs. It is not the climate breakdown. It is the primacy of corporate power, which has extinguished our democracy and left most of the working class and the working poor in misery, as well as the continued increase and consolidation of their wealth. It is impossible to work within the system to shatter the hegemony of oligarchic power or institute meaningful reform. Change, real change, will only come by sustained acts of mass civil disobedience and mobilization, as with the Yellow Vest movement in France and the British-based Extinction Rebellion. The longer we are fooled by the electoral burlesque, the more disempowered we will become. Dr. Cornel West and I were on the streets with protesters in Philadelphia outside the appropriately named Wells Fargo Center during the 2016 Democratic Convention, when hundreds of courageous Sanders delegates walked out of the hall. "Show me what democracy looks like," they chanted, holding Bernie signs above their heads as they poured out of the exits. This is what democracy looks like. Sanders' greatest tactical mistake was not joining them.
Agreed.
He bowed in fear before the mighty altar of the corporate state. He had desperately tried to stave off a revolt by his supporters and delegates on the eve of the convention by sending out repeated messages in his name, most of them authored by members of the Clinton campaign, to be respectful, not disrupt the nominating process and support Clinton. Sanders was a dutiful sheepdog then and is a dutiful sheepdog now, attempting to herd his disgruntled supporters into the embrace of the Clinton and now Biden campaign. Sanders apparently believed that if he was obsequious enough to the Democratic Party elite, they would give him a chance in 2020, a chance they denied him in 2016. Politics, I suspect he would argue, is about compromise and the practical, and this is true. But playing politics in a system that is not democratic is about being complicit in the charade. Sanders misread the Democratic Party leadership, swamp creatures of the corporate state. He misread the Democratic Party itself, which is a corporate mirage. Its base can, at best, select pre-approved candidates and act as props at rallies and in choreographed party conventions. The Democratic Party voters have zero influence on party politics or party policies. Sanders' naivete and perhaps his lack of political courage drove away many of his most committed young supporters. They are right, he is wrong. We need to overthrow the system, not
fucking ain't right.
Trump and Biden are each repugnant figures, doddering into old age with cognitive lapses and no moral core. Is Trump more dangerous than Biden? Yes. Is Trump more inept and more dishonest? Yes. Is Trump more of a threat to the open society? Yes. But is Biden the solution?
Hell no.
Biden represents the nostalgia of the ruling elite for the old neoliberal order. He personifies the betrayal by the Democratic Party of working men and women that spark the deep hatred of the ruling elites across the political spectrum. He is a gift to demagogues and con artists like Trump. A Biden presidency will ensure that far more competent demagogues will rise to take power. Biden cannot plausibly offer change. He can only offer more of the same. And most Americans do not want more of the same. The country's largest voting bloc, the 100 million plus citizens who out of apathy or disgust do not vote, will once again stay home. This demoralization of the electorate is by design. In America, you are only allowed to vote against what you hate. But by voting for Biden, you do vote for something. You vote for the humiliation of courageous women, such as Anita Hill, who confronted their abusers. You vote for the architects of the endless wars in the Middle East. You vote for the apartheid state in Israel. You vote for wholesale surveillance of the public by government intelligence agencies and the abolition of due process and habeas corpus. You vote for austerity programs, including the destruction of welfare and cuts to Social Security. You vote for NAFTA, free trade deals, deindustrialization, a decline in wages, the loss of hundreds of thousands of manufacturing jobs, and the offshoring of jobs to underpaid workers who toil in sweatshops in Mexico, China, or Vietnam. You vote for the assault on public education and the transfer of federal funds to for-profit and Christian charter schools. You vote for the doubling of our prison population, the tripling and quadrupling of sentences, and huge expansion of crimes meriting the death penalty. You vote for militarized police who gun down poor people of color with impunity. You vote against the Green New Deal and immigration reform. You vote for limiting a woman's right to abortion and reproductive rights. You vote for a segregated public school system in which the wealthy receive educational opportunities and poor people are denied a chance. You vote for punitive levels of student debt and the inability to free yourself of debt obligations through bankruptcy. You vote for deregulating the banking industry and the abolition of Glass-Steagall. You vote for the for-profit insurance and pharmaceutical corporations and against universal health care. You vote for bloated defense budgets. You vote for the use of unlimited oligarchic and corporate money to buy our elections. You vote for a politician who, during his time in the Senate, abjectly served the interests of MBNA, the largest independent credit card company headquartered in Delaware, which also employed Biden's son, Hunter. What the public wants and deserves will again be ignored for what the corporate lobbyists demand if we do not respond to the social and economic catastrophe that has been visited on most of the population, exacerbated by our failure to control the pandemic. We will be unable to thwart the rise of corporate tyranny and a Christian fascism or halt the ecocide that will wipe out the human species along with most other life forms. Right-wing violence, along with lethal police violence, will explode with or without Trump in office if we do not build robust socialist programs to reintegrate those who've been pushed aside back into society, to heal the ruptured social bonds, to give workers jobs that provide a sustainable income and dignity, empowerment and protection, to provide free and well-funded schooling through college, if we do not rebuild our labor unions, along with instituting universal health care and an end to the squandering of our resources on endless war. Yes, we need new radical parties, which is why I'm here today. And in this election and from now on, we need to stand up for our values, not surrender them, which is why I urge you in this election to vote for the Green Party. I am not willing to surrender every issue I care about to become an accomplice in this moral squalor and death march to extinction. But I'm also not naive enough to tell you we can win. The corporate state has built very effective mechanisms of control and oppression. But these corporate forces have us by the throat, and they have my children by the throat. In the end, I do not fight fascists because I will win. I fight fascists because they are fascists. Thank you.
Have you punched the Martian today?
Thank you, Chris, for that very lucid assessment of where we are as a country. You speak with the knowledge of having seen the breakdown of civil societies in other countries in Eastern Europe. And I am honored and privileged, as we all are, that you bring that perspective and analysis here today. To
green is not
truly
the avenue,
appreciate
I
the
think,
gravity of what is happening in the United States. Our next segment is a montage of the many thousands of different supporters that we have across the country. I'm happy to say
someone in chat said, I don't vote green, I smoke it.
We put out a call for videos, for citizen testimony, to be a part of the convention, to speak in their own words about what is happening across the country. It is one thing for those of us who are here today, whom you're hearing from as speakers, to share it with you. It is another for you to hear it from people themselves in their own struggles that they've confronted. So I'm happy now to turn it over to our storyboard testimonials videos, to them.
Neither of the major parties in the United States represent the people. Both represent the interests of the wealthy.
I've been voting for this two-party system forever. For what? Why do we have them?
Right now, what we have is essentially a two-party duopoly that gives us one more choice than a dictatorship.
We can't have universal health care. Big Pharma won't allow it. We can't have a living wage. Big business won't allow it. We can't address the climate crisis. The fossil fuel industry won't allow it.
Politicians that we currently have in power and the system that currently oppresses us has been stealing our money for decades.
Can we thrive under this current system? Well, I would ask all of the people who are currently suffering due to COVID-19, who can't afford to pay their outrageous hospital bills.
I know from personal experience that this hospital will sue me and garnish my wages if I can't pay them.
The hospital denied me because of lack of funding, even though I was disabled and had Medicare insurance. They told me to go fund me. In 3 days, I raised $28,000, and I was finally put on the heart transplant list.
I tried to apply for disability in January and was told that I would not qualify, that the courts assume we lie and cook the books.
Both parties are representing people who don't have problems that government can solve. And the people who do have problems that government can solve aren't being represented.
I've been a climate activist for a long time, and I'm tired of fighting pipelines and dirty fossil fuels. So it's time to start over. Brand new party.
Corporations feel they own nature and own the ecosystems and own people.
When I look out at the world, I see people sleeping on the streets. I see people who are food insecure. I see people who are loaded with a mountain of debt coming out of college. And I see people in a pandemic who don't have health care. I don't know how anybody looks at that and says things are operating correctly.
Police haven't changed. There's no reforming the police.
If you provide the people with opportunity, there will be far less crime. The reason why people commit crime is because they see no other way.
We will always be voting for more war and more devastation so long as we vote Democrat or we vote Republican. It is time to vote for the people so that we can still have a country, a planet.
I have hope and belief in MPP.
The People's Party, they care about people.
We need a new party.
We need the People's Party now.
That was a lot older faces than I expected to see in a montage like that. I like that. I like that it's multi-generational.
You have it there from our very own supporters about why this is so important, that we need to form a major new party. Next up was going to be Senator Mike Gravel. Unfortunately, Senator Gravel was not able to join us today, but he said that he would be honored to join us on a national call later. And so we will have to save something for everyone for later. But they say always keep them wanting more.
I would have voted for him.
So there you have it. And so in place of Mike Gravel, we have our next speaker.
They didn't even let him play.
A former grassroots candidate for Congress in New York's 12th Congressional District. She's on the steering committee of the Justice for All Coalition. She's a planner of the Women's March in New York City. She is a stand-up comedian, and she is Lauren Ashcraft. Please welcome Lauren Ashcraft.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much. I'm so honored to be here today. My name is Lauren Ashcraft, and you may recognize me from my recent congressional campaign in New York 12. I ran to raise awareness around some of the most urgent issues our society faces. But along the way, I realized that everything is so much more broken than it even seems. We live in a failed state, and that state was built around the premise of white property-owning men making decisions that only benefit them. That's held up so well that 244 years later, our fascist president, the administration, police, are thanking white supremacist terrorists for slaughtering protesters.
It is quite a sight to see that, right?
That's the country that we live in. You cannot fix something that was built to be broken. We have to shatter the systems that oppress us and rebuild everything for all of us. We're in an abusive relationship with our two-party system. The Democratic Party plays good cop, while the Republican Party plays bad cop. And what have we learned through all of these?
They are both cops.
All cops.
Yes, she said it.
We need a party that is built from truth-telling, from the struggles of the working class, not a party that accepts money from the industries that profit from our oppression. What no establishment politician wants you to know, that at the federal level, we pay for things through something called congressional appropriations. Nothing bad has ever happened when we've spent more than we've taxed back. We're doing it right now. We're deficit spending to pay for endless wars, to put kids in cages, to militarize the police. There is no deficit boogeyman that comes out from under our beds when we pay for war. So why is it that our politicians want us to think there is when we want universal health care? They'd lose their donors. So let me tell you something that was not said at the RNC, that was certainly not said at the DNC. We can pay for universal health care. We can pay for the Green New Deal. We can pay for a jobs guarantee. We can cancel the rent. We can pay for everyone in this country to get $2,000 a month until the end of this crisis. We can defund the police. We can stop endless wars. We can build a country in which we are all truly equal. What we can't do is wait. To wait means you have the privilege of jogging down the street, sleeping in your bed, or opening your car door without being shot by the police.
That is asking quite a bit, though.
Someday your loved ones are going to ask you what you did in this moment. Tell them that you knew we had to change and that you did everything you could to fight for it. So I'm asking you to join me by voting your conscience this November and help me afterwards to build a party and platform that works for every single one of us. We don't have to choose between bad and worse. We can choose change. Thank you.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
Thank you, Lauren. Thank you. That is very well said. That is very well said. And I'm happy to say, too, that I have just learned that we are now number 4 trending in the United States. Because this is the convention that people should have seen 2 weeks ago. This is the convention that people should have seen 1 week ago. And it's happening now. In 3 weeks, we, as the Movement for a People's Party, organized all of these amazing people that you're seeing here today. Imagine what we can do as the people.
No, we're number 3
4
now.
Years. Our next speaker is also a former Democratic congressional candidate from New York. He ran for New York's 9th congressional district. He is a housing rights organizer and a criminal justice advocate.
Number 2 now.
Of the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Let's go.
Isaiah James.
Thank you so much for having me. I want to thank everybody for hosting.
I love his glasses.
On, you know, and I'm for those who don't know me, my name is Isaiah James, 33 years old. Like I said, I'm a housing organizer. I'm a disabled veteran. I'm an activist. But first and foremost, I'm a Black man in America. And as many of you have seen over these past few weeks and months, you know, the plight of Black people in America is something that really needs to be heard and taken seriously. You know, we haven't been nearly as diligent as as a country at dealing with our 400-year sin, the sin of slavery and the sin of inequality and the sin of racial segregation in this country. And until we excise that tumor from the body, that cancer is going to do nothing but linger. You know, so I'm here to talk today about our politics in this country. And as many of you know, as I know, as everybody watching this knows, our politics is beyond broken. It is broken on both sides, Republican and Democrat. The audacity of both parties in this country to tell women when they can and cannot use their constitutional rights over their body. And when I say that, it's because Democrats spend more money on wars than Planned Parenthood. The audacity of both parties in this country to tell Black people that you should go to jail for longer. And I say that because Democrats also fund private prisons and they fund the police state. The audacity of both parties in this country to say we cannot afford universal health care when Democrats and Republicans both fund our war machine. Well, guess what? It's time for us, the people, to be audacious. It's time for us to stand up and make our voices heard. Because like it's always been true, nobody was ever born on the top of Mount Everest. You get there one step at a time. The journey is long, it is hard, it is arduous, but it is worth it when you get to the summit. And that's what Dr. Martin Luther King talked about 50, 60 years ago. That's what Brother Malcolm X talked about. That's what Fannie Lou Hamer talked about. That's what all these great men and women throughout our generations have talked about. It's about moving the ball forward with each generation. Like, I'm 33 years old. I may not get to see the end of this result, but I damn sure know that we have to push. It's time for all of us to stand up and stiffen our spines and strengthen our resolves and put our backs to the wheel and move this country in the direction that it purports to be. Because our founding document was written by men who owned slaves. So that should tell you how much stock they put in the word freedom. But it says that all men and women were created equal. If that is so, if that is to ever be true, we have to make it true because change doesn't exist in a vacuum. No rights that we have were ever easily won. They are hard fought. So when it comes time for people like me,
yeah, you know why they tell you things like that are impossible?
And you see this,
they don't want you to try.
All walks of life, comedians, actors, political scientists, professors, because that's what it is. This is a movement. This is a movement saying that the people have had enough. You don't have to be Republican to like this movement. You don't have to be Democrat to like this movement. All you have to be is a person that is willing to say that I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. I am this earth's
fighting
steward.
him.
Because we did not inherit this earth from our ancestors. We're borrowing it from future generations. And if we want it to look like anything for our children and grandchildren, we have to start now. Because as was said before, the clock is ticking. We don't have time to wait on income inequality. We don't have time to wait on climate change. We don't have time to wait on criminal justice reform. We don't have time to wait. Poor people, working people, Black people, brown people, indigenous people, trans folks, we don't have the luxury of sitting back and being placated anymore. We don't have the luxury of going to talk to our friends in Congress because they don't listen to us. They only listen to the big donors. So now is the time for us to stand up. And I understand that it's a monumental task. It really, truly is. But so was dismantling slavery, a system that had existed for 200 plus years. It's a monumental task. But so was dismantling Jim Crow, a system that had existed for almost 100 years. It's a monumental task. But guess what? We're up to the task. We're up to doing it. You know, I ran for Congress last cycle, not because I wanted fame or money or exposure. I ran for Congress because I'm tired of seeing the same homeless brothers and sisters on my block. I ran for Congress because I am tired, my wife being a public school teacher, us having to scrape together whatever money we have to buy things for her classroom, while the NYPD's budget is $6 billion.
Ooh.
I ran for Congress because I am tired of seeing 22 veterans die a day
$6 billion
of suicide, when our defense budget is $760 billion.
Wow.
I ran for Congress because I am tired of seeing high-rise buildings go up in my community that people who look like me, who built this community, cannot afford. I ran for Congress because I am tired of getting those damn messages in my email box telling me that I owe hundreds of thousands of dollars in student loans. I ran for Congress because I am tired of seeing women have to live in homeless shelters while we have more billionaires than any city in the world. I ran for Congress because I was tired of seeing this. And if you are tired of seeing this too, if you are fed up with our two-party corporate system that is backed by the same oligarchs and the same fascist movement, if you are tired, then I implore you to stand up and join a People's Party. I implore you that, because this November, I'm not going to tell you who to vote for, but I'm telling you right now, I'm not voting for Joe Biden. I'm not voting for the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils is still evils. And if Joe Biden were to win, all it's going to do is empower the next neo-lib, the next neo-lib, and the next...
Or the next worse than Trump.
To break the chain, we have to break the cycle. All it takes is one. A mighty oak tree grows out of a tiny seed. This is the seed right now that's being planted. And now it's up to us to water it. So when the tree bears fruit, future generations can feast from our labors. So thank you again to everybody who's here, who's stepping up, who's speaking out. Thank you for putting this panel together. Thank you for inviting me. And thank you all for listening.
Well done.
Thank you, Isaiah. I think that sent shivers down my spine, your speech about why you ran. Next up, we have the creative activist, a singer, a writer, host of Act Out on Free Speech TV, freelance writer, founder of Art Killing Apathy, founder and lead singer of the political hard rock band Rooftop Revolutionaries. She's going to read us a poem, a fantastic poet, recently published all her poems in Paradigm Lost. Please welcome Eleanor Goldfield.
Oh, Eleanor Goldfield?
Thank you so much, Nick, and thank you. Wow, it's been incredibly inspiring and awesome to hear everyone speak. It's kind of like you don't even need poetry because you're already doing it. But I am here to offer a little bit of a poetic break. And actually, this was specially requested by Nick. So I wrote it for this particular time and place that we're all experiencing. So yeah, I hope you enjoy it. What a strange time to write poetry. What a strange time to play music. What a strange time to build barricades and light Molotov dreams. What a strange time to rattle thrones. to breathe tear gas and sage, to smell change, to pray with raised fists, and to meditate in bellowed screams. What a strange time to smile, to laugh, to wear masks that reveal who we are, to dance when we know the world is watching, to forge silver linings in hurricanes, to write our stories in graffiti on monuments to a whitewashed history. A strange time. The siren song of normal, a normal so strange. Do you remember? That mirage, a facade of democracy, a well-dressed hypocrisy, now naked, obvious, true. Illusions always die hard, and they always haunt the living. Everything wasn't all right, and it isn't all right. It may not be all right. I'm not all right, and if you're not all right, that's all right.
I'm not all right.
Through a trembling hand, I can write poetry. With aching arms, we can build. Through tired eyes, we can see. With weak knees, we can fight. In the din of toppling empires, we can rest. And in these cramped corners, we can make worlds. We are historic. We are futuristic. We are placeholders for infinity. We won't be here again, but we are here now. In these strange days and in these strange ways. And you can stop us like you can stop a sunrise. Seeds will grow and others will burn. That fire inside is your ancestral guide. Call on it now. As we swoop into trenches, navigate underworlds, catch glimpses of sky and carve hope in our minds. Feel summer-soaked concrete, our feet pounding streets. Sow our dreams with silver threads, weave wonder in a weary world. And these songs of freedom drown out our fears. Carrying a tune from fields to the mines, from Haymarket to Zuccotti Park, it's the chorus of improvised beats, no solos but symphonies rising, more and more a crescendo electric, tripping that light, fantastic, bombastic. It ain't no requiem mass, it's a love song. To militant joy, to radical resolve, to the solidarity of the shaken. To the emergent, divergent, and like root systems finding our way home, to the fight, to the build. Heartbeats pulse the rhythm of our place and our time. There's no pause, no rewind. Play.
Oh my God. I love that. That was great. Whew.
Thank you, Eleanor.
I like that. Do you remember that democracy, that well-dressed hypocrisy?
I hope that you will submit more to us. We would love to publish them on peoplesparty.org. There is no revolution without art and without poetry.
And I'm totally going to cite Eleanor Goldfield on my next album because I'm stealing that line.
And the People's Party is no exception. I'm happy to say, too, that we have now climbed to number two trending nationally in the United States.
You think we're going to make it on the national news?
Like for the people to be taking power back. That's what it looks like. For the people to be claiming no more. For them to be saying, now we take the driver's seat. Our next speaker is the host of the Progressive Soapbox and radio show out of Washington, D.C., Fault Lines, on 105.5 FM, Jamarl Thomas.
There we go. Yeah, there he is.
Thank you, Nick. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I quibbled back and forth over what to actually talk about, but I think I want to start with unemployment. 1 million people filed for unemployment last week. This compounds with 1 million that filed before that. On top of the 1 million people that filed, 12 million people had to file or basically are out of healthcare at this very moment in the midst of a pandemic. This combines with the 27 million people that were out of healthcare even after Obamacare was signed. They're people who are basically flung into the streets from their homes because they couldn't necessarily afford to pay their rent. And understand all of these things are acts of policy. They're not acts of God. There were choices that were made to benefit one over the other. In Wisconsin, right now, there are riots. Now, people who are, let's say, the comfortable class will wag their fingers at those riots, but they always and never necessarily deal with the realities that were there as precursors. No one in their right mind wants to be out there angry and perturbed and throwing stuff. They're visiting violence upon people who are, let's say, somewhat in an indiscriminate manner. But again, no one wants to pay attention to what was visited on them prior. The poverty rate for African Americans in Kenosha, Wisconsin was 39%. For whites, 13%. There are majority, if you're looking for areas that have a majority African American population, the overwhelming majority are either prisons or jails. That's astonishing. Those are acts of policy. That's horrendous. I'm making the point to you that these things are visited on your society, and it being visited on your society, no one cares up to that point. Compare and contrast that with the beauty pageants that the Republican Party and the Democratic Party had. Neither one of these parties are dealing with the real material concerns of this population. Both of these parties have realized that basically, because it's only two, both can be captured by corporate class, and both can have somewhat of a similar interest powered by the people who are basically putting money in their pocket, sliding credit cards through their butt cheeks. This is our politics. We accept this. There is no way out in a political sense for this. The only way out is to extricate yourself from the political party, stand under the banner of policy. Do you realize we dragged Medicare for All over the burning corpse of 20 Democrats, all of them taking their shots, all of them doing whatever they can to poke holes in that policy, and we win 88% support in the context of a party. And we're not even talking about the rest of the population with 69% support. If you can't get that over the finish line with Biden, Pelosi, Schumer telling you to kick rocks, you can get nothing over the finish line regarding policy that you want.
That's right. That's 100% right.
The only move, the only strategy is to leave and to stand under the banner of policy.
You have
and make
to
a demand
show them that you have the ability to walk away.
Our interests. This is our litmus test. And that is true for any candidate, by the way. It is their responsibility to get your vote regardless of what party they belong to. I'm making the point that if you're a lefty and you don't get it at this point, this is your task. This is your play. If the Democratic Party really does believe, after 30 million people make a demand and say, this is what we want, and you don't appropriate that, and they're willing to tank it to a man they're considering the apocalypse, any notion of representative government is dead. That's the first point. But the second point is your legitimacy goes to the degree to which you can maintain, let's say, a demand and be willing to go through with that demand. The People's Party is a platform that allows you to deal with that, to do that, to state your political case, to function and push for your political objectives. Which is why I say, yes, vote for the party or the people who you believe represent your interests the most. But from the standpoint of the People's Party, I love what Nick Brana has done, and it has my support thoroughly. Nick, back to you. I'm bad with time, so I'm trying to keep myself short.
What was that, Scott?
I've got to call it here on my.
Oh, okay.
Thank you, Jamarl. It's wonderful to have your support and to have been a guest in your show in person last, and look forward to many more in the work that we have ahead of us.
Yeah, me too.
Our next speaker is likewise an independent media leader, as well as a comedian, the host of Get Your News On with Ron.
I'm going to stick
and
through
I'm very
it.
grateful
Unfortunately,
to
I don't have
Ron Placone and Graham Elwood for hosting our organizers
set up at the moment for just me
at their live comedy events back when that was a thing. They were very gracious in always and any venue that they went to providing a table for MPP organizers, and I'm very thankful for that. And so I'd like to introduce to you now Ron Placone.
Yeah, Ron Placone.
Thank you very much, Nick. I appreciate it a lot. Thank you. We are here today because we realize that, people say, oh, the system's broken. Here we realize, no, the system's working. The system's working the way it's supposed to. It's working the way it's supposed to for the donor class and for Wall Street. It's working so well, it's gotten to the point where our options for president are Joe Biden or Donald Trump. Like most people with a pulse, I don't want to vote for either candidate for a lot of reasons. One of them being I have a cat. I already spend enough time checking a box for a piece of shit.
I love that joke.
And it's not unreasonable to say the only time people should be having to choose between alleged rapists is if they're picking someone out of a suspect lineup, not voting for a leader of the free world. And this is the point that it's gotten us to. This is by design. It's by design. During the Democratic presidential primaries, there was more talk about having empathy for billionaires than there was about stopping the systemic murder of black people by police. We've reached a point where people like John Kasich and Colin Powell are part of the supposed alternative to the conservatives. At the rate we're going now, by 2028, Don Jr. is going to run for president as a Democrat. I don't know who the Republican nominee is going to be. I'm guessing it's going to be a hologram of Mussolini. I'd imagine that'll be the front runner. And this is by design. The Republicans are one of the greatest existential threats to mankind, to paraphrase Noam Chomsky. I believe that to be true. And the only way they're able to be this horrible is because of how ineffective the Democrats are, and vice versa. They need each other, and that's bipartisanship. It takes a Republican wing and a Democrat wing for the American eagle to fly, so it can shit on all of our heads. And we're here to say it's time to end the duopoly. We're here to say that it's not radical to demand the type of healthcare system the rest of the industrialized world takes for granted. It's not radical to say we need to act bold on climate change now with a Green New Deal and it can't wait. It's not radical to say anybody working 40 hours a week at an honest job deserves a living wage. It's not radical to say we need to look out for the most vulnerable among us. It's not radical to say that education should be for everyone and not just for the elite. And it's certainly not radical to say it is time to end the wars and end them now. And I want to give a special thank you, first of all, to everyone here today, because you're all so amazing. But in particular, there are some of the speakers today that have done so much to educate myself and everybody else in the world, really, about what the United States is doing around the world, because that's a job the corporate media refuses to do and won't do. And that is why I personally am not for any war unless I'm willing to go fight in it myself. That's why the only war I am for is the war on drugs. I'm fighting for drugs. I think we're going to win, actually. I'm feeling good about it, and I'm doing my part one joint at a time. But we are here today to say it is time to end the duopoly, and we cannot settle for less. And the time is now, because if not now, when? Because at the end of the day, my friends, there is nothing pragmatic about an incremental solution to a catastrophic problem. My name is Ron Placone. You can learn more about me at ronplacone.com. Thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this. I love you all very much. Peace.
Ron Placone, everyone. Ron Placone, everyone. Republicans were, as Ron says, fittingly given almost as much time as progressives at the Democratic Party convention, as if progressives who, as Ron pointed out, have the greatest support in terms of the policies. Medicare for all, 88% among Democrats and among all Americans. Medicare for all, getting money out of politics, free public college. All of these things are super majority issues. Universal basic income, 82%. Super majority issues, and yet the Democratic Party cannot so much as put speakers on to speak about it. In fact, they put up Andrew Yang to speak, and they wouldn't even let Andrew Yang say the words, gave him 2 minutes, wouldn't let him say the words, basic income. That's the Democratic Party of today. Next up, we have Maybe a Girl. She is a Silver Lake neighborhood councilwoman, and she's also the first drag queen elected to public office in the United States. Maybe, it is great to have you.
Oh, fantastic.
Hey, everybody. Oh, my gosh. I'm so excited to be here for the People's Convention. Thanks so much for having me here. My name is Maybe a Girl, and I'm the first
I love drag names, too. They're so funny.
In the United States. In early 2019, I was elected to the Silver Lake Neighborhood Council in Los Angeles, and I'm currently serving as the treasurer and co-chair of both the Budget and Finance Committee and the LGBTQIA Advocates Committee. I also ran for the U.S. House of Representatives this election cycle in California's 28th Congressional District and came within 1,100 votes of advancing to the general election. We lost by less than 1%. Representation is so important in our governments on every level, from municipal to state to federal. That's part of the reason why I ran against establishment Democrat Adam Schiff this year for a seat in Congress. I'm a trans feminine, non-binary person, and I want to ask you how we can expect people like you or me to be fairly represented in our government when there's no one like you or me in our governments.
I think it's rather hard,
Just
actually.
2 weekends ago, 3 trans women were brutally attacked in Hollywood. It was all caught on film. It was clearly a hate crime. Public officials made sure to be there for the news announcement of an arrest in the case. But a week later, when the case was dropped by the DA and the criminals were released, our same elected officials were nowhere to be found to demand justice. This is unacceptable and an inaccurate reflection of our values and ideals. I'm sure you've all noticed that the two-party system is not working for everybody. In fact, it's only working for corporate America and the wealthy elites. Big business doesn't care if you're a Democrat or a Republican, because big business knows that leaders of both parties are working to enhance the corporate agenda rather than the agenda of the people. It's naive to believe that our elected officials will fight for Medicare for all when their donors are health insurers. It's foolish to believe that our elected officials care about housing justice when their donors are real estate developers. And it's incomprehensible that our elected officials will keep us out of war when their donors are weapons makers and principals of the military-industrial complex. It's time to disband the dysfunctional two-party system that perpetuates greed and corporate influence in American politics. It's we, the people, that hold the power, and the elite are doing everything they can to make sure that we don't realize that. True progress for the people cannot be achieved until we form our own party, a party that finally serves the interests of real people like you and me. Let this be the last time that we vote blue, no matter who, which ultimately enables the status quo to rob the poor and the sick and incarcerate and kill people of color. We have the opportunity to create a new America, one in which every person has access to healthcare, education, housing, and dignity. I am so proud to support the movement for a People's Party, and I cannot wait to see the people rise up. Please join the movement and demand more of our government. Black Lives Matter, and I yield my time. Thank you.
Well done. Well said.
Thank you, Maybe. Next up, we have another independent media leader, another longtime supporter of MPP. It is the host, hailing from Miami, of Mi Casa es Su Casa, Nico House.
Thanks, Nick. I appreciate you guys having me. You all may not know this, but a lot of people ask me on a regular basis, who am I going to vote for? Which party am I going to vote for this election? Actually, generally, people tell me who I better vote for or else. But, you know, I usually pose a few questions to them. So I asked them when they say, well, who are you going to vote for? I said, well, it depends which one of them spoke up for the indigenous Americans at Standing Rock. And the answer is none of them. Well, then I say, well, you told me I can't vote for a racist. Well, then I can't vote for a segregationist either, right? And maybe I will vote for the person who had a very strict anti-war stance, a stance that is not only anti-war, but is actually a stance of peace. Which one of those candidates and which one of those parties represent that. Out of curiosity, are any of the choices you're offering me declining money from the largest lobbying group in the country, AIPAC, in favor of speaking up for the Palestinians who are literally dying under the current circumstances of an apartheid government? Which one of those candidates are speaking up about the open market slavery that we're seeing in Libya as a result of one of the candidates' administration? Which one of those candidates in a time of a pandemic is pushing for the most popular policy choice in the country, which is Medicare for all? Which one of those candidates is supporting that? Which one of those candidates in a time of a pandemic is pushing for the solutions that have already been made available overseas, like one that Cuba invented, that has actually led to them defeating, essentially, the COVID-19 virus? Which one of those candidates is denying corporate money and corporate super PACs? Which one of those candidates are speaking up about election integrity and fighting tooth and nail every single day to make sure my vote counts, rather than making a partisan mockery of our vote simply to push their own personal party's agenda? Which one of those candidates is going to speak up for myself as a Black male, not only when it's convenient when they're running for office, but actually putting their money where their mouth is and putting pen to paper for policy that benefits everyone, rather than just the 1% in the elite? And the truth is, when I tell people that, they can't believe that those are the only options left. And you know how you make sure that these are not the only options left in 2 years and 4 years, etc.? Then you organize now behind a party that is based its entire platform strictly on the issues rather than personality. See, the People's Party has been different in that regard, if you haven't noticed. There's no personality to get behind. There's no cult of a personality to get behind. The only cult that you can join is a cult of the issues. See, I know my history, and I understand that the best movements have always been focused but decentralized. And for those of you who may be in a position where you feel like you have to choose, because your choices are essentially, by the way, neo-fascism and civility fascism, right? The neo-fascism you can call out, but the civility fascism, well, we can't say anything about that because Trump might win. But once again, last time I checked, there was a Democratic president during Standing Rock, during Ferguson, during Baltimore, during Flint. And they're offering you the choice between civility fascism and neo-fascism. Well, I choose the people instead. Imagine Martin Luther King and Malcolm X approaching any of those great leaders from the civil rights movement and say, well, are you going to vote for the racists or the segregationists? Imagine asking them that and then shaming them for saying, I vote to fight both of them tooth and nail for the people. I vote for an anti-imperialist platform. I vote for a platform that treats healthcare as a right. I vote for a platform that takes climate change seriously. I vote for a platform that does preventative maintenance when it comes to healthcare rather than reacting to a pandemic after the fact. I vote for a platform that will ensure wages are fair, that labor is represented, that will not take corporate PAC money or super PAC money, because you can only have one master in politics. It's the people or the money. And the great leaders of our time, as history has told us, will choose the issues every single time, rather than playing to the party, either of the parties of the duopolies. And guess what? That's how we got civil rights. If you all can't remember, Martin Luther King was going to go after anybody who sat foot in that Oval Office. And everybody, including a bleeding heart racist like Lyndon B. Johnson, was pushed by nothing more than people organizing behind the issues that matter most to them. And so I want to thank Nick Brania. I want to thank all the other members who organized this brilliant convention. And I want to thank everybody else who has taken a stand against. This isn't voting for the lesser of two evils. It's just basically choosing to vote for evil. And we have to say no more will we vote for evil. Instead, we will fight for the issues.
Amen, Nico. Amen, Nico. We need an exit strategy to this lesser of two evils spiral where our choices get worse and worse and worse every 4 years. Next up, we have two speakers who are here joining us as activists and experts on basic income, one of the policies that is most desperately needed, supported by Bernie Sanders, the few progressive members in Congress. The first is a recently former board member and leader in the Humanity First movement, which we were very happy to collaborate with on the Rally for a People's Stimulus, when we as the Movement for a People's Party went to the homes of more than 50 members of Congress and senators across the country and demanded that they support a people's stimulus, including a basic income, including defunding the police, including Medicare for all, abolishing, suspending student debt payments, credit card payments, and rent and mortgage payments during this crisis. We were very glad to participate with them and other members of the Yang Gang in that campaign and in that effort to get Congress to support a people's stimulus. Unfortunately, we know how that turned out. Congress went on vacation while telling the rest of us to get back to work. It's a pleasure to introduce you now to Massey Branscombe with the Humanity First movement.
Thanks, Nick. I just wanted to say it's a honor here, and it's really exciting to have been working with the People's Party. Been really proud of the courage, not just by the speaking today, but everything I've seen and been working with y'all. So without further ado, I want to say hi, I'm Massey, and I'd like to talk about what does it mean to be good. Not to be perfect, not what is bad or evil. What does it mean to be a good American, a good human? Can you be homeless, begging for change and scraps of food and still be good? Of course. I've seen a woman give her half-eaten sandwich to a man doing worse than she was, and that's pretty dang good in my book. Can you be a good person in a minimum wage fast food worker? Obviously. What about a mother who finally opens that restaurant her family has been pushing her to because the world needs to know what great bolognese tastes like? That is doing good. What if one of these metaphors wasn't about food? I must have been very hungry when writing this, but here we are. Anyway, can you be good if you turn that restaurant into a multi-million-dollar chain, providing decent jobs with benefits for thousands of people? I think so. Now imagine how much easier, how much faster each of those people would have been able to help others and do good had they had a foundation, a small but steady source of income so they could get on their feet, get a part-time job, maybe in a restaurant, learning how they work, and then the rest of the time help focusing on their craft, whatever it is. So in her case, she can open that restaurant and serve that bolognese, creating hundreds or thousands of more opportunities for others to do the same and potentially feed millions more with great food and memories. It doesn't have to be food, but it's about service to the local community and to the American community. If money is supposed to represent how much we've contributed to society, and if you can see that our ability to make an impact and do good grows exponentially with our resources, we owe it to each other to make sure we all have that ability to grow. However, we've come to a point in society where cash in the bank does not equal the lives you've served, the good you've done. Capitalism has been gamified and commodified from a system meant to deter top-down power concentration to one that all but enforces it. So this brings me to the question, can you be a billionaire and still be good? Not sure the ideal world had billionaires, but today, can someone give $1 billion to improving people's lives as we ask the American government to do with trillions? I have to say yes, because if 100 million people are determined to do good and society is broken and gamified to the rules of Nintendo Capitalism 64, a few of you are going to win that game. But to earn the title of that level isn't easy. If you're going to exploit the rules of a broken game to be a truly good player, you must fix the rules, and that is what
no
we
one fixes rules that they use
so that
to get
no
them where
one
they
has to play
are.
with a broken controller ever again. So that everyone has the basic resources they need not to compete fairly, because it's not about competing, but about doing as much good as possible with the skills you have. But who are the billionaires that are going to step up, that are actually going to give back and fix the system that has consumed so much and consolidated so much power. Bill Gates, not bad, saved millions of lives in Africa. Jack Dorsey, the CEO of Twitter, donated $1 billion, nearly a third of his wealth, for COVID relief, girls' health and education, and trials of universal basic income, literally direct cash payments to people most affected by the pandemic. So someone who is able to build a career off taking money from billion-dollar investors and as well as billion-dollar corporations like the ones that pay to advertise on Twitter is literally giving it back to people who need it most. To me, that is good. We as a people must focus on who and what we are fighting for and fighting against.
Why
we are
take
fighting
that
against
time
corruption,
to
against
thank
greed,
these
against an oligarchic society.
walking,
We're
talking policy
a common
failures?
morality to help others so they can help many more. The freedom to serve others
Who
how
let
you
the live
feel
in
you
here?
are best capable isn't what universal basic income means. But to me, that's what it means to be an American. Not the decadence of neoliberalism, nor the lesser of two evils. America is great not because we've always been good, but because we've always striven to be better. Thank you, take care, and be good.
Thank you, Massey. Thank you, Massey. And honored to have you and be working with you again after the Rally for a People's Stimulus. Next up, we have a speaker who was going to be with us live, but was caught in the hurricane in New Orleans. He is the editor of Basic Income Today. He's one of the leading thinkers on the merits of a basic income. He's written for many publications, including the Huffington Post, Politico, the Boston Globe, appeared on countless TV news shows and podcasts, was once described to me by someone else in the basic income movement as a third of the movement. I think that has certainly changed in the past year. Please welcome Scott Santens.
A Category 4 hurricane just swept through my state of Louisiana during a once-in-a-century pandemic. Extraordinary weather events are normal. 180,000 dead Americans and 1,000 more dying
This looks
every
like
day
the
from coronavirus
like an actual
is normal.
commercial.
1 million Americans newly applying for unemployment benefits every week is normal. Being killed by police as a black man is normal. Congressional gridlock is normal. The president eroding faith in our institutions is normal. What's become normal is not okay. None of this is okay. What we're doing in America isn't working. America is not working. It's time to draw a line. This far and no further. This line we shall not pass. The only way to really change direction is with truly systemic structural reforms. We have to look with new eyes at ancient festering problems. We can't just vote for different leaders. We have to change how we vote, and voting has to exist upon a foundation of fundamental human rights. We all have a right to life. That is a fundamental human right, but we've never truly recognized it. No one really has the right to life so long as someone else can withhold what's needed to live. Within a monetary system of private property, money is oxygen, so we all have an unconditional right to enough money to live. That is why I believe
take a quick pee break so I don't miss anything really good after this guy. This guy's pretty good though.
Floor, where every American would start every month above the poverty line and never fall below it. UBI is not solely an income boost equivalent to a simple raise, however. It's a structural change that removes barriers to other structural changes. It's a foundational floor for everything else we need to do. It's the power to say no. It's the security to breathe freely. It's fuel for essential activism. UBI is still about money too, but too many people don't think through what that means. What does money buy? It buys time. It buys freedom from abuse. It buys access to the courts. It pays for disaster evacuations. It pays for grassroots campaigns. It affords volunteering. It supports entire communities. We need more than UBI. An unconditional right to life is not the ultimate goal of a just society. It is the prerequisite to a just society. UBI is the construction of a firm, anti-racist foundation of equity to support our humanity and free our imaginations and our potentials to achieve all that otherwise remains unachievable. Upon that foundation, We also need healthcare as a right. No one should ever be dependent on their jobs for life-sustaining income or life-saving medical care. The right to breathe is not an employee benefit. It is inalienable. We need Medicare for all, and we need basic income for all. No conditions, no means testing, no but what abouts. Survival, guaranteed for life, so that life can be about everything beyond survival instead of an endless pursuit of survival. But to accomplish and preserve these pillars of a just society, we also need a functioning government. We need to save, restore, and expand our democracy. We never should have allowed a two-party system. Duopoly is not democracy. To change the structure requires mass local activism. Every state is in charge of how they vote. Maine was the first to break free by adopting ranked choice voting.
I love ranked choice
Alaska
voting.
and Massachusetts may be next. Every state must follow in order to end the spoiler effect and move from plurality to majority voting. Gerrymandering must end too. Politicians must be prohibited from choosing their voters. At the very least, we need third-party fair redistricting, but even better, multi-member districts utilizing proportional representation. We also need publicly financed elections where every American is allotted an amount of funding to donate to political campaigns so that lobbyists are overpowered by the power of the people. We need so much more, but I consider these the most important that will make everything else possible, no matter how impossible it all feels right now. 2020 has been a year none of us will ever forget, but it also changed the world, and a changed world means an opportunity to remake it into something new, something that actually works for all of us, something that puts our humanity first. A better world is possible, but it's up to us to make it happen. It's up to us to build it. It's up to us to draw that line together and choose to recognize our mutual human rights through the further democratization of power and the decoupling of both survival income and healthcare from employment. To hell with the two-party system. To hell with poverty and the daily fear of it. And to hell with non-universal healthcare. 2020 and no further. Normal is no longer acceptable.
Is he gonna come back? Uh-oh. There it goes.
Thank you, Scott. Very glad that you could participate despite getting caught in the hurricane. For everyone who's watching, I want to say you can join us at peoplesparty.org and peoplesconvention.org. This is just the beginning here. Our next speaker is a very special guest. He's an American political commentator. He is a politician, author, actor, retired professional wrestler, former mayor of Brooklyn Park in Minnesota, and the former governor of Minnesota, and host of The World According to Jesse, Jesse Ventura. Jesse Ventura, who said, in accepting the invitation to speak at the People's Convention, that to participate in building a major new party in America free of corporate money and influence would be an honor equal to running for the presidency, as he considered
the world
this year.
According
Everyone,
to Jesse.
Welcome, Jesse Ventura.
Hell yes, I love Jesse Ventura.
Hello, everyone. I'm former Minnesota Governor Jesse Ventura, the 38th governor of the great state of Minnesota. And the first thing that I want to get clear is this is not a campaign talk. I am not running for any public office.
Everybody hold on.
But I do want to make a political statement in the light of what we live under today and a brief history. First of all, I'm 69 years old now. I'm a graduate of Minneapolis Roosevelt High School. And if you recall the recent events with Mr. Floyd and his death in Minneapolis, that happened right in my neighborhood, South Minneapolis, between Roosevelt and South High School, where I grew up. I'm very familiar with it. And so that's a little bit of history of me. I joined the Navy right out of high school. I'm a Vietnam veteran. I came home. The first thing I did, I was rebellious, and I I walked with the Stop the Draft movement. I wanted the draft ended because the draft was a horrible thing that was totally discriminating, and the rich kids get out like Donald Trump and the poor kids have to go. And so, and most of the poor kids were kids of color would have to go to the war. And so I marched against the draft. We were successful in eliminating it. I've also marched for the Equal Rights Amendment for women, and been involved lately. And I marched multiple times to change the name of the Washington football team. So I've always been a bit of a radical in a way, rebel, whatever you want to call me. Dennis Kucinich, the great congressman from Ohio, after dinner one night, called me the greatest free spirit he had ever met. And that was one of the greatest compliments I could ever get from someone like Dennis, too, especially. But my history is I've always been third party. I mean, I voted for John Anderson way back in the Ronald Reagan era. I have voted third party politics constantly because I've seen the destruction, and I understand. John Adams, one of our forefathers of the country, warned us, I believe it was Adams, when he said when political parties take over the government, when they become so powerful, that will be the end of the United States as we know it. Well, people, don't you think we're kind of there right now? The two political parties have really taken over. And I like to refer them as really the one political party. They're the corporate party. Because when I was governor, I brought the third party people together to try to get them under one roof. And unfortunately, it was like herding cats. But I did find out what we had in common. And here's what we had in common. We didn't take the dirty money. That's what all the third parties pretty much have in common. We're not dirty with the PAC money and the dirty corporate money. The other two parties are. And always remember this. The two major parties today, they put their party before the country. You see that constantly. Protect the political party, the party's power. They aren't necessarily doing what's best for the people of America. That's number one on their priority. Number two, the donors, the money people, the people that keep them in power, the people that pave the way. They're the ones that get the tax cuts. They're the ones that get the money bailouts when our economy tanks. So naturally, they're the second ones fixed or taken care of. Then finally with them, it's their own personal view, whatever they may feel personally about an issue. And we, the people, might be fourth. But something else could sneak in there. We very well could be fifth for all that I don't know everything. But there's a division in this country today, and it's the biggest it's ever been. You know, I heard it described the other day. It's like going back to the 60s. And yes, it is in a way. And I lived through the 60s. I lived through Dr. Martin Luther King. I was a teenager back then. I was a young 13-year-old when President John F. Kennedy was assassinated. And I don't buy for 1 minute Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone, if he acted at all. But that aside, that's another story. But I lived through all that tension. I lived through the death of Robert Kennedy and his murder along with Dr. King. And I thought we were finished with it, but we're not. And that's the thing that bothers me the most today, is the fact that they're forcing me to relive history again. They're forcing me to relive times that I remember in my life today. And I'll state this, I think it's worse today, believe it or not, than it was in the 60s. I think to get to where we're at today, you have to go back another 100 years. You got to go back to the Civil War, because what's happening in our country today is a division in our country. We're being divided up, just like the Confederacy and just like the Union soldiers. And if that happens, it will be a disaster, a complete disaster. Now, why do we need to elect a third-party president? Here is why. No matter if you elect Trump or Biden, the polarization is going to continue, and it's going to get worse. It's going to get worse. The only way out is to give them a common enemy, and that's what the third party does. They fear the third party more than anything else, And guess who knows that from experience? You're looking at him. I got elected governor of Minnesota. I had a Democratic-controlled Senate and a Republican-controlled House, much the same as you see nationally today. Now, for the first 3 years, whoever I sided with generally prevailed. But then we got to year 3. I submitted my budget, which I'm required to do. The Democrats and Republicans got in bed together. They discarded my budget. They came back with one of their own. I vetoed it twice. They overrode my veto twice. Subsequently, using the people of Minnesota for political pawns, their budget didn't work. I had left office, and guess what? Minnesota had a $5 billion deficit because they put their party politics and party power before the good people of Minnesota. The pecking order was them first, the Minnesota people second. And there's a great example of it. Now, nationally, that's what you need to have happen. You must give them a common enemy. Somebody, those two parties, they fear the third party movement more than anything else. And they eventually will jump in bed together and they'll be singing Kumbaya by the fireside. And you'll think, how did this happen? Well, it happened because a third entity entered the game. And that's what we need to have happen in America. A third or even a fourth entity should be entering the game now. We're too diverse. I'm fiscally conservative, but I'm socially liberal. Who do I fit in with? I believe in less government. There's a lot of places I think government could be reduced. But I also believe in social issues. I don't think it's the government's business what your sexual preference is. I don't think it's their business. End the war on drugs. It's been a disaster. And, you know, there's all sorts of things like that that can happen if we break the cycle of the Democrats and Republicans. But that's what you have to do. You have to break the cycle. And doing that is difficult and will be difficult. It may be a 10 or 20-year process. Remember, they've been in charge this long and they're going to protect their turf. Now, I just want to tell everyone, thank you very much for hearing me today. I appreciate it very much. I keep trying to get out of politics, but it's kind of like pulling the plug in the bathtub. It keeps wanting to suck you down the drain. But anyway, I still love my country. I believe in my country, and I believe that we can be a better nation and will be a better nation when we're given more than just two choices. Always remember what the late, great Jerry Garcia of the Grateful Dead said. If you're made to pick the lesser of two evils, it means you're still picking evil. Thank you.
Love me some Jesse.
Jesse Ventura, everyone. That marks the end of the first half of our program. When we return, we're now going to go on a 10-minute intermission. When we return, we are going to have Chase Iron Eyes, Jimmy Dore, Medea Benjamin, Annalise Vincent, Tim Black, Ryan Knight, myself, Marianne Williamson, Dr. Cornel West, and Senator Nina Turner. And so be sure to come back in 10 minutes, enjoy the music, and also get ready to cast your vote on the People's Party app. You can find it on peoplesconvention.org. See you in a sec.
And with that intermission on their part, I'm going to call it on my end. Thank you for joining me and Scott for this convention day stream.
Doing the same thing, expecting
we'll see you Friday, if not sooner. Until next time. See you then. And continue to watch